Hi, I'm Jake, and this is my third video, and this will be the last time I keep talking about how many videos I've done so far. I had set a goal, one of my friends encouraged me to set a goal of getting 3 videos recorded by my birthday, which is next week. So here we go with number 3. I am meeting this goal. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is custom relationships in ClickUp and how to do that with the API. So one of the cool things in ClickUp, and it's relatively new, is you can create your own custom relationships between different lists. So for example, at 80/20, where I work, I have set up a CRM, and this is what I use to track incoming leads, current projects that we've got going on or that I'm selling, or we've got companies, people, and invoices. So these are all separate lists, but they all get related to the project. So for our little demo, I've got just some dummy data. And basically what I want to do is create projects here, and I want to relate them to companies here. So when I migrated us from Notion over into ClickUp, I had to do something like this, but it was way more complicated. Notion does not make it easy. No hate or shade towards Notion, but it was a complete pain to migrate. So that said, what we'd want to do, I'm just going to keep it nice and easy. And it's kind of, when you look at the ClickUp API, it's not super apparent where you can actually make these custom relationships with the API. I honestly did not think it was possible until I tried a little something to see how it was being done. So here's a little trick. So I'm just going to create a fake task. So project test. If you're ever curious how these things are happening, so one second, this is filtering out my tasks. Okay, so if I wanted to come down here, I've already created a relationship called company. So here's how you do that. You do create relationship, and then you can call it whatever you want, and then you can add tasks from a specific list. And this is where it gets cool. So if you do from a specific list, so in this case, I did companies, you can also create roll-up fields. So you could say like website and pull that information in here so it's visible. So I've already added that here. So what I'm going to do is we'll just say my company. And I'm just going to hit create my company from here. Okay, cool. So if I wanted to jump in here, I can just click on my company. Now I'm under companies, and let's just do my website. Okay, so now if I go back, I can now see if I do a roll up, I can do website, add, and boom, I've got that information just visible right there. I could also say like, show me the status of that task. And so I could also call that something different. But this is just a helpful way so you can quickly see information about that related company. And then the cool thing is that when you have multiple projects that are tied to that company, from the company view, if I come down here and let's just say I've got another project, now I can see all those projects rolled up right here. And maybe I want to track the revenue from those things. So I can add that field, and then now I can see all that. You could even calculate it and have it sum it up right there. So cool things you can do with relationships. I encourage you to try that out. But So for now, what we want to do is actually create this using the API, using Integromat. And this will just make it kind of a quick way for us to build this. But before I get to that, I just remembered what I was going to show you is when you want to figure out how this is being done. So I'm just going to take this off, and then I'm going to show my developer tools. So I never do it with the menu, but let's just see if I can find it. So these all have shortcuts, and I always use the little shortcuts. So we could do developer tools, and we'll go to network. All right. So what I recommend doing is clearing this out, and then don't let this freak you out because there's other ways to do this, but this is just how I discovered how they are creating these relationships, even though it actually wasn't correct in the documentation, and I wrote into them and they fixed it, which is good. So if I click on add and then I type, so before I hit my company, I'm going to clear this out. Again, I'm on the network tab. And if I click on my company, I'm going to see right here, this is the API call that was done to link this to my company. So the main thing that we need here, and it's going to be a little bit different for the one that we use, but basically the part after here is task, and then this is the task ID that we're adding, and then the field that we're using. And so for these fields, they're treated kind of like custom fields. And so each custom field has a custom ID like this. And we can see this is a post. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see what the exact body of the API call was. So that is what eventually helped me figure this part out. So I'm in the ClickUp API documentation, I'm under custom fields, and what I want right here, I can, using this structure, I can link these related tasks. And again, it wasn't super straightforward, to be honest. So that's why I'm recording this video, because I'm sure there are people out there that would like to do something similar to this. So that said, I'm going to help you do this. So with our dummy tasks, I've got just project names. Let's just do that. And then we'll just do this plus 30. Make it nice and easy. Okay, so we've got all these. I'm just giving us something that we can have so that we could do like a roll up for these tasks. And maybe we'll do, let's do revenue. And these will all be $1 million. Or 10 million works. And actually, let's do this. This is dumb, but okay. We got real big budget projects here. Okay, so what we want to do is create our integration to bring this stuff over. And there's lots of different ways you could do this. If you're migrating from another system, your data is probably going to be way more complicated, but if you use some of these initial techniques, this will kind of help. So just for a visual, I'm just going to make this a different color so you can kind of see like these are for the company and then these are for the project. So what we'll do, I duplicated an existing scenario that I use. I'll just talk about this real quick. So the way that I work, I have my leads in here, and then when it's gotten to the point where we're ready to convert that and make it a project, I have it run through some steps. And so what this does, in ClickUp, it calls a webhook when I choose a certain status. So we have a sales status, and when I say, let's see here, it's one of these. This is my test data, so it's not the same. Oh, I'm looking in the wrong area. So under leads, I can basically come here and I could say send proposal, and then this will kick off this set of steps, which seems a little bit crazy, but it works really well. So basically what happens, the webhook gets called, it gets the task information, and then it grabs the company info and it splits that out and then creates the initial project. And then it creates the main contact based on some of the fields that are in the lead. And then it creates the company. So these are tasks that are getting created in those different lists. So this is in the people list, this is in the company list. And then this is where it relates all of those tasks to each other. So, and then this actually kicks off another webhook and does another thing. So the only reason I brought all this over is so that I could grab some of these as a test here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep one of these and we'll reuse that in a bit. So I will just get rid of these and we'll get rid of these and that one as well. Okay. So what we'll do is we want to use Google Sheets. And again, you can use whatever. I was using Airtable when I did our migration. And again, the reason I showed you that big, long scenario is because this doesn't have to be a one-time thing where you're just migrating things over. Though this did come very much in handy because I was pulling over data that I needed to relate to each other. So this is somewhat the process that I used. I didn't want to make it super confusing with the crazy data acrobats I had to do to get our Notion data to look the way I needed it. So what we're going to do is, in this case, we want to, let's just get a range. All right, so I've chosen the spreadsheet that we're working with, and we'll choose the sheet. And now we need to choose the range. So in this case, I could just choose the columns. That would be one way to do it. I could also be specific and just choose basically, so like A1 to E8. We'll just do that. A1, E8. And again, anything I show you, there's a million ways you can do these. So, and actually, let's do, this does contain headers, so we'll do E1, and we'll start the range at A2. All right, so let's just run this. This little guy is just kind of making things not want to zoom in. All right, I'm just going to say once. All right, if I run this. All right, so now I can see all of my data coming in like this. And if you are bringing data in from another system, chances are you'll have multiple sheets. So one sheet would be your projects, one sheet would be your company names, but in this case, we're trying to keep it relatively simple. So we've got that data there. I'm just gonna auto align. It's not letting me zoom in, but that's okay. So I'll go ahead and save that. So the next step we want to do is to create those tasks. So I'm thinking what I want to do is I want to create both different types of tasks in each of their respective lists. So I'm going to create a task. All right. So the first thing I'll do is create the project. And since I ran this already, I can come here and grab the project name. And let's set the due date, just so we have a little bit of information. And that should be good enough. There's a lot of fields, sorry. And let's rename this. So this will be get project, or create project rather. And then we will right click on this and clone it. And we will call this one create company. Cool. And then this one is going to be our API call. And so the way that you get one of these is you go down here to ClickUp. And this is one of the things that if you've watched any of the other two videos, I mentioned this a bunch, is with Integromat, you can make an API call. And the nice thing about this is that it gets you past all of the setup you would have to do to do API calls. So authentication is one of the harder parts of getting started with an API, and Integromat makes it very easy, at least easier than normal. So I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to try to refresh, because there we go. It's just kind of bothering me that I couldn't zoom in. So we want to create the company, and we're going to, oh, and you know what? Since I refreshed, that was dumb. I'm going to rerun this module. So what I did is I unlinked it just so that I don't run through these steps. And then I'll just bring that close together again, and it'll get connected. So what I want to do is create the company. Okay. So we want to create this in the company list. And we'll replace that with company name, and then get rid of the due date. For the heck of it, we could, just so I can show you something you can do here, is you can say now. And so that'll set this due date to this, right now. We could also let's do add days. And so we can drag now into that first argument. So the way this works is the first argument is the date or a date and time. And then the second argument is the number, in this case, of days. So I'll just say, let's add 2 days. I don't know why I would normally have a due date on a company, but maybe there is. And then we want to fill in the website. So other things you can do here to make this faster is you can just start searching for it right there. Okay, so this is a custom field that lives in the company list. And the way that custom fields work in ClickUp is they are tied to the list. So whichever list we're in is what custom fields are available to us. So we got that. All right, now comes the fun part. So what we want to do is we want to relate the project to the company. So in this case, project, or the reason this number is so high is because I had a lot of modules previously when I saved this, and so they racked up real quick. And so 115, so this is 116 for the create company, and it shows the name of the task there. So what we want is, and another way that I could kind of whittle this down a little bit to make it more manageable, if I did task. So we want the task ID of the project is going to be So it doesn't really matter which order these go in, but this body down here is what we saw. Let's see here. Actually, maybe I was looking at, this is what we want. So when you're relating tasks, it's a kind of a combination of what we see here. So this is the API call where we have the task ID and then the field ID. So this is the one we're trying to, just for the sake of simplicity, we want to do this to the project ID. And then what we're going to add is the ID of the related task. And so the way this works is it's a little array inside of here. So we're adding, in this case, we're just going to add one task at a time, but you could have a comma separated little array right here of all the different values that you want to add. So if your eyes haven't glazed over yet, we want the task and then /ID. And so we'll just go ahead and we'll start with the project ID. And this field ID is not the right one. So what we're going to do is, using that little trick that I showed you, when I added the company to the project, we use this little field ID right here. So come over here, and I'm going to throw that field ID at the end. So the reason I don't have the rest of the URL that we saw over here in the API documentation is because since we're working in Integromat, they have already built this part into their module. And so you're going to do the part relative to after API. So with that first /v2 and then whatever the API call is. And so this is just helpful if you're looking at any of these other API calls, because there are some things that don't exist in the basic, whatever I was trying to say, in the modules that exist for that app. And so you can come in here and you can grab that part of the API URL, and then you can stick that in here and do your own thing. So all that, and I'm not sure, let's see if they say custom fields. So when I'm in the custom field, and let's see, I think I scroll all the way down. Here we go. So get accessible custom fields is actually something that you can run in Integromat. So it's just a ClickUp module that you can add. It's called list all accessible custom fields. And if you run that for that specific list you have, it gives you like the list ID and all that stuff, but it also gives you the custom field IDs. So one thing you could do with that information is you could do download output bundles. You could run that through a JSON to CSV converter, and then you've got like a little spreadsheet of all your different fields. You could also just search inside of here. So I could search for company, and it might show. I think it does. So you can see here, custom field name, company, custom field ID, and then the list type of relationship. And so that gives us a good idea of what we're dealing with. So again, it is just treating it like a custom field. So that was just kind of a side note. But what we want to do is set a custom field value. And so this is actually a post. And so the reason I was looking that up right now is because this is the method that you want. So get, post, put, patch, delete. And I have another good one that I'll do as a separate video, but it is related to, so like I have in here, I have this little lead automation thing, And so I can come in here and run one of these automations whenever I want. But there isn't currently a way to just clear this with the standard automations that exist in ClickUp. But I found, using this little method, I found the way to clear out that dropdown. So I'll try to record another video for that. Okay, so we've got set custom field value, and we've put in the custom ID field ID. And now down here, so again, the way I got that body is from the documentation or from looking at the the call there, the API call in the network tab. And what I want to do is grab the company task ID, and I'll stick that in there. So you don't have to fully understand how this is set up, but this is just JSON. And we've got our value, and then inside is a collection, and we've got add and remove. This is getting in the way. I don't need this on Integromat. Thanks, Grammarly. Okay, so yeah, we've got that, and I'll hit OK. And let me rename this so that this makes more sense. So we relate the project to the company. So one thing that I found when I was doing my setup is it actually works a little bit better if you add a little sleep step. So under tools, you get some different little things that, if you're familiar with any code, are actually very useful. So things like increment function or set a variable, things like that. If you do a repeater, this is a loop, if I can talk. So you could like iterate on items inside of an array, or you could just say, I want to loop this X amount of times. And yeah, so there's a lot of cool things that don't exist in Zapier, for example, that get you a little bit closer to code. Not that that's everybody's goal, but anyway, so what I can do is I can add just a short little sleep to slow it down a little bit, because you want to make sure that these are both fully created before you try to relate them. And if for some reason, one of these calls is slow, or, the system is not keeping up, I've gotten errors on that step. So I'm just going to slow it down and just do a little 1 second break. Okay, so if I come back here into projects, what we should see once we run this, we should see all those come in, and they should relate the companies. And then the companies should also get related there. One little note is I've got Tesla in here a few times, but I'm going to show you how we can just merge those after the fact. So it'll just be one way to keep this a little bit more on the simpler side. And some of you might be laughing at me for saying that this is simple, but it's not too crazy. So I'm going to run this, and let's just see if we get it on our first try. So we're cycling through that range, and then each one of these is going to run for as many of those rows that we have. And if we come in here, there we go. So I've brought these all in, and I've brought in the different companies. And if I click on one of the companies, I can see the website, and I can see the status. So that's pretty cool. Now, the one thing that I was mentioning is that if I go into companies, I can see there are 3 Teslas. And so just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to give these numbers like this, just so we can see. So there's Tesla, Tesla 3, should have been a Tesla 2. Anyway, maybe it didn't save. Yeah. Anyway, so all that to say, if I click on these, I can come up here to merge these tasks, and I'm just going to merge it with Tesla. We'll just merge it with that one. So now it's merging into Tesla, and those 3 tasks will now become one. I will say, be careful when you merge, because there is no undo. I was just writing into ClickUp support about the fact that they do not have an undo currently for that. So do it carefully. But now that I've done that, if I come back here to projects, I just see one Tesla. And if I come in here, I can do that. So from here, I can click on this, and now I'm in the Tesla company record. I could change the status here. I can see my related projects. And let's just say this one is active. If I go back a step, now I can see that that's active. And it looks like, oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't pull in the revenue field. So that's okay. But it would have given us one little thing that we could pull in. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful and made some sense. And let me know if there's anything that I can do on my next video. So if you look in the description, there is a little form that you can fill out, or you can tweet me, and I'd be happy to make a video for you. It might take me 3 months to get it out, but hey, we'll get it out at some point. Anyway, thanks.